The objective here is not YouTube data by itself. The objective is to learn here, the skill that we're trying to demonstrate and learn here is to how to navigate something they don't know. So the field that we talk about, the machine learning and data science, is very evolving very rapidly. And you will always learn to, you always need to work with something that you didn't see before. Okay? So I will give you an example on how to do that with YouTube data. And then in your project, I'm gonna ask you to uh, figure out another API other than YouTube. Because the objective is that you figure your way through something that you didn't know before. Okay? So YouTube Data API is one of the APIs provided by Google. Okay. Now, why do we care about this? Why is this a learning objective? Now they say that data is now the new oil. Now people make a lot of money because of data they had access and analyzed and figured out something useful out of it, or because they collected data that other people might find it useful and then they can sell it. Now, why do you think is YouTube is free? Why do you think all these services are for free? They seem to be for free, but in reality, they're collecting data and then they're selling this data. So they're making profit out of the data they collect. Okay? So now that we have lots of sources of data, some people use it like for good reasons, some people use it for bad reasons. Like the fact is that you have something that could be useful or could be harmful, but you need to know how to deal with it. Okay? So uh, those the providers of data like collect the data and then provide APIs for those who want to access it, like what we're doing right now. So YouTube data API is one of the APIs that allow you access to the data collected through YouTube. Okay. And sometimes that this data service can be chargeable. So like it's not always for free. Okay. And then that's how they make money. Okay. Now, in this session, we're going to learn how to deal with YouTube, but as I mentioned, it's not the objective in its own. The objective is the skill of navigating. Okay, so follow me in the navigation. Like I'm going to pretend that I didn't see it before, and then I'm trying to figure it out. Okay, now we have seen this before. We went to the cloud yesterday. Okay, I hope you tried to look into it. So go to the Google Cloud. So if you go to cloud.google.com, it will take you to the cloud, and you need the Gmail account to be there to be able to access it. So now I want to go to the console. And the console itself is a dashboard for all what you can do in this cloud provider. Okay. Now you can see here I have a project called Test 2. I have several other projects. If you are creating your like when you create your account, it will give you a default project. Okay. I'm gonna create a new project right here so that I would see how things look like when it's like a brand new project. Okay. So I'm trying to have the same view that you would have when you're starting off with a new account. So I'm just gonna call this test 3. Okay. So projects is just an organization unit. Okay. Now I have this, I will change to that test 3 project. Now I have a brand new project. Now, in order to go see what APIs I can have access to from they call it the hamburger menus. They call it the hamburger menu. It's like these 3 dashes, 3 bars. Okay, so you open it, you go all the way to APIs and services, and then you go to library. All right. Now you can see all sorts of interesting stuff here. The ones that we want to work with today is the YouTube. So if I keep scrolling, I clicked by accident here. So the APIs related to YouTube, they have three different ones. There is one that give you data, so raw data. All right, there's YouTube data API. There is one that gives you analytics, and there's one give you reportings. Now we're gonna work with this, the raw data. Okay. Now you see when you open it, in order to work with it, you have to enable it in the project. Okay. So I will enable it so that I can work with it. Now it is enabled through this test3 project. Now they already know that they keep changing often. So they usually there are good documentation. Now this is within the API itself. We'll come back to it. But before then, we didn't see it before. We don't know how to work with it. Now we need to learn. Okay, so oftentimes they have the supporting documentation. So if we go to documentation like here, you will see tutorials and documentation. If we go there, all right, it will show you all sorts of samples. They have samples, guides. Now this is the home page. Okay, they will. Okay. Now you can go different routes. You want to see how to work with playing videos programmatically, but that's not what we want at this moment. What we want is to work with YouTube data. Okay, so this is the track that we want. So if we go to the overview, you will see it will give you step by step what you need to do. Okay, so it goes first, you need a Google account. Okay, we already talked about that. And then you go to the API console. So we already here. This is the API console. We already there. Okay, and then you need to have a project. Okay, so we go to the Google console and create a project. And then you need some authentication. So what does that mean? Now we see when I access the services on GCP, I needed an account to access, right? They will ask you to enter your email and password, right? When I try to access the services from code, that also needs credentials. Not anyone can write code to access the services per se. You need to access after authentication. Okay, so there are different ways to do the authentication. So step number 4, like you need to have some means of authentication. Okay, now there are two ways to do that. If I go back to the API itself, okay, so I'm going to the API itself to see how can I get authentication that allows me access to it programmatically. Okay, now I went to the API itself. You can see here there's a tab called credentials. All right. If I click there, there are two types of credentials. You can have authentication token like this, or you can have an API key. So authentication token, like have you ever tried to access a service that say access with your Google account? So how does that work? You try to access, what happens? It opens that little window that asks you to enter your Google Google email and password, right? So that's the authentication token here. So if you use this, like if you try to run your code, it will ask you first to enter your Google account, like the username and password of your Google account, and then your code will be able to run. Okay, so it'll create a token based on it, and then the code will be able to run. It's a little bit slightly more complicated, so we're gonna take the easy route. There's another way to do similar thing. Instead of accessing using the token that is based on username and password on Google, you can use an API key. Okay, so I will say create credentials. So you can create either a token or an API key. I will take the easy route, the API key. Now, For the future, now this is a little bit outside of the scope of this course, but for the future, you need to look into making your application more secure. So you need to look into these restriction options. For now, we're just gonna keep it simple. It's not because it's not important, it's just because it's outside of the scope. Okay, we are only introducing, like, learning how to connect to the API and get data from it. Now, in the future, you keep in mind that you need to make it secure. All right. So I'll just keep the same name here. You can change the name if you want. And I'll just say create. Okay, so it will give you best practices. All right, good to have a read of this. Now, if I refresh, now you can see here there is an API key. Now, it's not a good practice that you show it to people like I'm doing right now, but I'm not gonna use it for anything other than the demo, so I can delete it later. So, but you shouldn't be sharing it with anyone. When you create your key, you shouldn't be, I mean, for the purpose of this course, like this key, you shouldn't be using it. Like if you share it with your friends, don't use it in anything serious. Okay? When you create an application that is serious, make sure to protect your key. Nobody should access it. It's like a password. Okay? But just for the demo here, you can see if you can look at the key. So this is kind of like a very complicated password that you can put it as part of your code, and it allows you access to the library through the code. All right. So we'll keep it there. We'll come back to it later. We're gonna need it later. Now that was one of the steps that were mentioned here, step number 4. Okay, so now we have a mean to authenticate using the API key. Now the step number 5, it says select client library. Do you remember when we talked about clients and servers? Now let me show you an example right here. I'm going to disconnect. I'm gonna ask you to connect from your side to the Solstice server. So this Solstice is a client server application that allows me to share my screen. Okay, so I'm going to exit so that some of you can experience it. Okay, now in order to access it, you can uh, put this URL in your browser. So open the browser and put not the IP. So here, but if you can open the browser, okay, and put this IP in it. Now it could be you can put it in this Listis app, but most likely you don't have it. Okay, so I just want you to see that when you try to access, it will tell you, would you like to install a client? Now someone is trying. You check your screen before you share it. Just like check your screen before you share it. Okay. Now did it tell you install a client? Right? Who's entering now? Who's sharing? Who's sharing? Did it say? Did it say? Okay. Can you say? All right. So did you say install a client? Tell you to install a client? Install Celeste? No? What do you mean no? You already had it installed? Okay. Don't go to your email. Okay. It's not showing on the browser. Like, okay, they should be, unless they changed it recently. Okay, let me see. 172. So, okay, it does say get the app. Unless you have the app, like there is an option to get the app. Okay, so you won't be able to. Okay, so okay, there is like it should ask you to say get the app, so list this app. This part of the app like is the client. So there is a server already installed. When you entered the address in the address bar here, it connected to that server. Now you needed a client, a local component that you install in your device that would allow this connection to happen. Okay? And then through the client and the server can communicate with each other, and then the screen sharing happens. That's pretty much what we are trying to do here. Now, see, there is a service. This API is provided as a service where it is somewhere on a computer out there that we don't know where it is. It's on a server out there, right? Now, in order to access it, we need a client. Now, that client is a library that has like, remember we talked about modules, pre-written code that you can import to your Python system, Python code. So there is a pre-written code that allows you to access the server through your code. So some Python code, or Google already written some Python code that anyone wants to write Python, they can use it to access the service. Okay? So the step number 5 here is that we need to have a client library. Now, if you look here on the side, there are so many client libraries that you can have to you can connect to their service through all these languages. The one that we care about is Python. Okay, so if we click there, it will give you a step-by-step on how to install the library and how to use it. All right, so this is code that was already written to Google created something called Google API Python client, and we can install it and start using it. So how do we install it? Using a command called pip. So pip install. Now upgrade means if it is already installed, then just upgrade it. Okay. So all what we need is just only this library since we're using the API key. If we were using the authentication token, we would need this library too, but we're not going to be using it, so we don't need it. Okay, so all what we need right now is to have this Google API Python client installed. Okay, so what we need, so open from any terminal, so I can just open a terminal, a command line terminal like this, and then say pip install or upgrade. Like this, I already have it installed, so it's gonna tell me at the end, okay, you have it installed. Or you can have it like, this is exactly the same as going from here. This terminal is exactly the same as this terminal. It's just within the VS Code. I can run it from here. It doesn't matter. Like you just open any terminal and run the pip install and it will, or upgrade, or it will install it. All right. Okay, so this step we already have it. So we have the client installed. All right. In addition to that, we need like it gives you examples on how to uh, run this code, how to connect to this API, what kind of data you can get from it, and how to get it. Okay, so here in step 2, it shows you some running samples. So for example, here, so this is talking about the giving you an example on how to access the channels. Okay, so if we go there, now see here, see this list, now we are in the reference. So data API reference, you will see here all the things that can be done through this data API. Like what kind of data you can get from it. So the data you can get from it is called resource. What kind of resource you can get from it? One of them is called channel. Okay. Now, what would you do with this channel? You can list it in all these different ways. Now, if you want to see all the okay, let me see. I want to see all the different resources that I can access. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going back to the overview page here. Okay, so this is to install the library, and I'll go back to it for the samples. But before we get to the samples, we want to know what kind of resources we can get from this data API. Like what kind of data we can collect from there. So the data that they can give you, they call it resource. So you can have an activity, something like activity that contains data about activities. Okay, you can have a resource called a channel that contains information about YouTube channel. Okay, you can have something like playlist, something like a video. So that will give this resource, like you have, you give you access to information about particular videos. Okay, so the example that we were starting to look at now is looks at this resource, which is that the activity, sorry, the channel resource. Now, what can you do with any of the resources? There are particular functions. You can list, so any of these resources, you can list them, you can insert, you can update, or you can delete. So these are the functions that you can do. So when we say resources, these are the data you can have access to. What can you do with them? You can just list. So listing is just to read them. You can just list them in order to read. You can insert, so you can add something. You can update, so change something that already exists, or you can delete. All right. Not all resources are the same, but these are the different functions that you can do. Now, if you remember the get and the post, so we mentioned a little mention about this. These are the HTTP request types, right? So every action we do through this API happens through an HTTP request. Okay? You don't have to worry about that. From our perspective, we use the Python library. The request will be, it's just a matter of creating a function call. Now, not all resources have these functionalities applied to them. So this table shows you what can you do in each resource. So here for a channel, you can list the channel, but you cannot programmatically insert or update or delete channel. Okay. Now, the comment. So this resource gives you information about comments, right? Comments in videos. Now look at this. You can have list them, insert, update, or delete. So you see here how people create bots or create automatic, like programmatically add comments in order to increase the reach of some YouTube channels. So a comment can be added automatically. So now not every comment you see on a video is written by a person. It can be sent by a program. Okay? Now, if you see in a video, you can list some videos. You can update and insert and update and delete. Okay? Now let's see an example action on the channel. So here in the back to the reference, let's go to the channels. Now in the channel, we can only list. Okay? So there are different ways you can list the channel. So you call the function list on the resource that we call channel. So you can list by channel ID. So you give it a channel ID, and then it gives you a resource that represents that channel. You can list by YouTube handle. Okay. You can list by YouTube username. You can list by like my channel, the channel that, like, if you provide your credentials, the channel you have that is created under your account. You can list channels managed by content owner. Okay. Now, all this is new to us, right? We're gonna see they help us with provide sample code that we can use to start with. Okay, but before we start looking at the code, now what should we expect? So when I say channel list, or if let's say I want to see a channel by ID, what should I expect? What should return? What does this channel resource look like? Okay, so when I make a request, I say list, this is a request. I'm sending HTTP request to give me a list of channels. Okay, what does the response look like if you scroll down? So this is how the response would look like. Do you recognize this structure? So something surrounded by curly brackets. Yeah, dictionary. Yeah. So the data is in JSON, which is something that is similar to the dictionary. When we read it in Python, it turns into a dictionary. Okay. So when you ask for a channel.list, what you get back as a response is a dictionary that looks like this. So there, the first three is some metadata, and then there is a list called items, and here you will see the channel resource itself. Okay, we're gonna run the code and see what the resource, but this is what we expect. There is some lists, dictionaries, and lists. This is what we get back from there. Okay, now let's have a look at an example. So here, if I want to see an example of list by channel, if I click here on this icon right here, see it opens that API Explorer and it shows you sample code in different languages, including Python. Okay, so if you're gonna write the HTTP request by yourself, it would look like this. But you don't have to, because we're gonna use Python, and then in Python it's just a function that we installed part of the library, and it's just a matter of call for this function. Okay, so this is how it would look like. We'll look into the details of the code in a bit, but you can see here there are some parameters that are sent to the list function. So you can see here, where is the call to the list? Here. So we say channels, this is the resource we want to access, and then list. This is a function, right? Now you can see part equal, and then like a string that has a list of parts. And then ID equals, so each of these is what is a parameter, right? So this is a parameter called part, a parameter called ID. Now all the parameters that can be sent to the list functions are right here. Okay, so we can send a parameter like called category ID for handle, for username, blah blah blah. So all these are all the parameters that we can send. Now the parameter part is supposed to be a string, right? Now it has but the example shows me the parts like snippet, content details, and statistics. If I want to know what does that mean, I can go back here to the documentation and you can see the list of all the parameters and explanation. All right, now the parameter part, these are the parts, the things that you can send in the part. You can list inside the string. We have 3 of them shown here. Snippet. So the snippet is just the title, description, and stuff like that. And content details and then the statistics. Okay. And this is the Python code. Now here's the thing. Now you can configure your code. Now you see this authentication, the 2 options of authentication. Now here, this is the part that uses the API. Okay, so by default, it tries to uses the Google authentication token, which is not what we want. So this is the part of the code. Where is it? I can't see it. Yeah, so the secret file and all that. So this is a part of the code here. The authentication, this is a part of the code that does it, but we don't want to do it. We don't want to use this, so you can just uncheck this. It will update the code, but we just need to trigger it a little bit. So if I changed one of another parameter, let's say maximum results. So this is the maximum number of results. Let's say I'm just gonna say 10. All right, so that kind of refreshes the code, and now it recognizes that I don't want the authentication token. Now it just uses the API key instead. Now, when we have our own code, we need to replace it by our key, but for this example, there is a general key that everyone can use to see the sample. All right. Now I will execute this code to see the sample and see whether this is what I need. All right, so the code executed. Now this is the result. It gives you the response in the dictionary that we have seen. Okay? Now we're gonna look into that in details yet, but let's say I experimented with this tool. This is what I want. So this is the code that I want to be part of my system. All right, so this is generated code. We can copy it, we start with it. We can't just copy it blindly. We copy it to start with it. Okay, so here, let me copy it. And then let's go VS Code. And I'm going to paste it here. All right. Now you can see there are no problems. Sometimes after you install the library, so this is the client library we just installed, and my system can see it because the 314 interpreter is my default interpreter. If you happen to install a library and it doesn't show, like it shows something like this. So if I have by mistake installed it for the 3.11, I think I already had. Okay, I have a version of the library installed for 3.11 as well, so I just was trying to get you to see the error. But if you have multiple versions of the interpreter installed, and then you try to pip install your library, that default version will be able to see that installation. Okay? Now, if you know that you did install it, but when you try to import it in your code and you can't see it, then you know that you need to change the interpreter. Okay? All right, so I don't see any complaints. Now see how it is. Now this is a sample code. It was generated for you to start with. Now you have to be careful when you actually use it in a system. You have to change this option because it's in order to make it secure. Okay, so just it is okay to copy the generated code, but you have to make sure to pay attention to it and update it. All right. So now this code uses the API key, right? And we do have an API key, right? So I need to replace this value with my API key. So I will go back to my API here, and then we'll get a copy of this key and paste it in my code. So now see this value that I just pasted will be sent to build the object of the YouTube resource. Okay. Now here's the object of request. Now this is an HTTP request. We don't need to deal with the creation of the request itself. We just need to call the function. So when I say YouTube, this is the object I just created here. This is the resource. And then the channel. So I say I want to access the channels. How do I want to access? I call the function called list. And then the parameters I send to the list, these are the parameters there. These are the part. This is the ID of the Google educational channel. Okay, you can change it with any ID you want. All right. And then when we say request.execute, it runs the HTTP request, receives the response, turn it into a dictionary, and we receive it here in the response. Okay, so now we can run it. You see, it may take us some time because it's going to Google. Now see, here is the response. It is difficult to see, and the more the data you get, the more difficult to see. So you can put it in a JSON file in order to format it. Let me show you that. So I'm just gonna copy the response here. Now I wanna look into the response to study it and try to understand it before I can work with it. So I'm just gonna copy it. And I'm gonna open a file. So I'll call it response. .json. So I'm just gonna put it on JSON so that I can format it to understand it. So JSON, short for JavaScript Object Notation. It's something that looks like the dictionary we have in Python, but it's a JavaScript, so it's very slightly different. Okay. The advantage of having a JSON file is that you can format it, so it is easier to understand the data when it's formatted, right? So I'm gonna paste it here. Now, see how it doesn't understand what is this? One slight difference between JSON and the Python dictionary is that this single quote is not understood in JSON. So it can only understand the double quote. Okay? So if I replace that single quote with double quote, now it can tell. Now another error here, the false. I think I replace all, yeah. And then also doesn't know what false is, so I have to turn it into a string as well. All right, now I can right click and say format. Now it formats it really nicely. Now I can understand it much easier. Now this is how it would look like. The response came like this. So here the metadata, okay? And then an item, the value of the item is a list, okay? It's a list of all the items. Now here we happen to have one item that is one channel because we are listing channel by ID, and the ID is unique, right? So you can only have one channel having this ID. Okay, so that's why in the list of items we only have one item. Now, what can we see? First three items are just metadata, okay? And then now we can see the snippet, one of the parts that we asked for. This is snippet, okay? So it has a title, description, URL, blah, 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 thumbnail, okay? And another part we requested was the content details. So it has the details of the content, the number of likes if there are. And then another that is the statistics that has a number of counts, a number of views, and all that. Okay, so if I am trying to have an app or a program that calculates the number of views of different channels, I can get the views from each channel and then add them, right? Now, if I just want to I want to just print the view count. Now, see how it is a little multiple hierarchies, a little complicated, right? And we're not supposed to, like, you're not supposed to have them burned in your mind. You need to explore it and figure out. Now I know the view count is here. I now need to figure out how can I access it. Okay, a nice tool that I like to use is the watch that is accessible through the debugging. So if I just put a breakpoint here before the print, and then I run the code, right, and then I can look at the response and then see how can I access that view count. All right, so right now we just got the response. The response is right here. I can use the watch in order to experiment with an expression that allows me access to the view count. So first of all, it is part of the response, right? So I need to access them through the response. So I start with the response. Okay. Now, what in the response I need to access? I don't need a kind or e tag or page. I need the items, right? So the channel that I want the views from is one of the items that came in this response, right? So this is a dictionary, response is a dictionary, and items is one of the keys. All right. So I want to say, I want of the response, I want the items. Okay. So that would give me the list of items. So the items itself is a list. The first item in this list is the item that I want, right? So now I need to access that first item in the list using the index 0. So that would give me access to that first channel coming here, right? Now I need to go to the statistics part. Now you see here, this is the each item in itself is a dictionary, right? So items is a list, and each item in this list is a dictionary, right? So in this dictionary, we have some metadata, and then we have snippet, content details, and statistics, right? So I need to go to the key. It's called statistics because the view count is under that. So this is the channel. Now I can refer to the key statistics. Okay. And then the statistics itself is a dictionary. So out of that dictionary, I want the value of the key view count, right? So for that statistics dictionary, I want the access the view count. Now, if I expand this a little bit, I see this is the number I'm trying to find or trying to get access to. All right. So I experiment with in that watch. I can just, I don't know if it's gonna let me copy it. Let me try. Copy that. All right. So this is what I want. Oh, copy the whole thing. All right. So I after experimentation, I can just say, okay, in the response, I need to access the items. And from the items, I want the first one at index 0. And in that dictionary, I want the statistics. And from the statistics, I want the view count. All right, and that's it. Now let's run it from here to make sure that it runs. There you go. So now we access the view count. Now we know how to find your way through the resource that came to you, and then we collect this data and do whatever analysis we want. Okay? Now in the lab, I'm gonna ask you to do something with the video, so collect information about the video resource. So that's it. Do you have any questions for it? Okay, well, see you after the reading week then.